Hey everyone, welcome to Rationable Conversations once again. And today we have a person who I have been wanting to interview ever since, actually, from the time before I even had a podcast. Everybody, please welcome Kevin Folta to the
Yeah,
Rationable
hi everybody.
Conversations. Kevin, welcome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. In fact, I've been delving into a lot of farming techniques and agriculture and trying to understand it. And honestly, it's not my it's not in my wheelhouse, so to speak. I would really love to get as much information about it as possible because India especially is has a lot of
Yeah.
misunderstandings and misconceptions about this. And I've got a little video section, which we'll get to a little bit later, which I want to play for you, and then we can analyze what's been said accordingly at that point of time. But first, please tell us and all the viewers and listeners what exactly you do and what exactly you're qualified to do and what it is that you do and what is your passion.
Yeah, it's a really complicated question because I do a lot of funny things. So my background is in molecular biology. My PhD is in molecular biology,
Mhm.
and I started to apply that to plants. And eventually that would work out in Florida, where we have Florida, USA, many outstanding crops that are relevant to health of the entire nation. And we
Mhm.
can produce them like in India and Andhra Pradesh. There's the area that's the horticultural crop production area, the area that makes all the fruits and vegetables that, and in Florida, we're able to grow when no one else can grow. And
Ah,
California can't produce, nobody else can produce. So we have a really open window to provide for the rest of the country, which is great. And I got the job here and I work in genomics of small fruit crops. So we study DNA science of how you make nutritious fruit that's appealing to consumers.
yeah.
But that's my science side, but I also am a farmer. My wife is a farmer. We raise chickens, ducks, geese, turkeys, and pigs, along with fruits and vegetables outside of Gainesville, Florida, out in the rural area of Florida. And
Nice.
that's what she does full time, which means I get to do it full time. And then I also have a background in communication. So, how do we talk to people in ways that make them understand or help them understand what the science is? And I've spent the last 20 years of my career trying to understand why people believe what they do
Mhm.
and how we can be more effective as science communicators to help turn the tide of disinformation so that science can help people shape their decisions. And it's something I
Absolutely.
really am very passionate about.
Yeah, and it's this is a field that really needs a lot of science communication because we have a lot of people and influencers who are talking about nutrition and what kind of food you should be eating and what kind of diet you should be having. But a lot of pseudoscience and conspiracy theories go really
Yep.
deep into how the food is produced, how the food is grown, where it comes from, and it's absolutely completely all-consuming. And one of the books actually that kind of got me into this because I was starting to trying to learn more about nutrition and where food came from. Of course, this is from a purely American perspective, but is this book called The Omnivore's Dilemma.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that one?
Oh, sure.
So, what do you
Yeah.
think of that book? It essentially, for people who haven't read the book, it is a really broad view on how food is produced, especially in the US when it comes to corn and soy and a few other of the other major crops. And it's not just about how the crops are grown in an industrial manner, but it's also about how animals are bred for the food, for the kitchen and for the
Yep.
plate. And the guy even goes out hunting for his own food at one point. So it's a very complex and nuanced book though. But on the whole, do you think that it hits the right angle and right perspective of how we should be viewing food, or do you think it gets some things wrong?
Well, to some degree, I really agree with it. It's Michael Pollan, and
Yeah.
Michael Pollan has done some wonderful books. I love The Botany of Desire. It's one of my favorite books. And Omnivore's Dilemma gets a couple things right. eat what is closest to the ground, what's not processed the most. I don't remember all of his key points, but the basic ideas weren't bad if you are an affluent person who can afford it and has access to it. And that's the problem where it all breaks down, is that it fails to realize that not everybody shares his perspective because, like where I live, 75% of the people within a few kilometers of where I live are on public assistance. I live in rural Florida. And this is a place where we have very limited access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Now I have a truck. I'm a professor. I work for the state. I can drive 20 minutes to the grocery store. But many people here don't even have a vehicle, and they're reliant on the poor quality fruits and vegetables that are at the petrol station, that are at the small grocery store we have that maybe has food that if I buy potatoes there or onions, I bring them home, they're good 2 or 3 days and then they're
Ah,
no good anymore. So they get it's just a very cheap store that gets the fruits and vegetables that are just on the edge of going bad. Maybe they get this from the big stores in town. But rural America is in a real crisis that way. And I think it
mhm.
shares that with much of the world that there's food insecurity that comes from lack of access. So whereas the omnivore's dilemma is what do I pick among all the foods? The real person's dilemma around probably 4 billion people on the planet is I don't get your affluent American choices. And I really feel that's really the dilemma that people are facing.
And that's exactly what I noticed. It's okay, this is a really idealized way to prioritize your food choices. But I was like, what do I do in India? Like in India, we have a huge variety of fruits and vegetables that are grown, that are imported, it's very easily available. But at the same time, the nuances of understanding what is organic and what is commercially farmed or industrial farming, if that's the right term. Is that the opposite? Is the opposite of organic? What is the opposite of organic food?
It's hard to say, but I think that what we talk about is organic, conventional, and genetically engineered. I think those are the three
Ah,
buckets.
okay, all right. So yeah, so there's a huge drive towards organic food in India, but that is in urban centers. That is only it's targeting affluent people because this is promoted by influencers on Instagram. And it's a very unrealistic way, from my perspective, to be able to look at food and prioritize your nutrition accordingly. So, I wanted to understand a little bit more about what exactly is organic farming and what does that entail?
Yeah, so the important distinction here is that organic farming is a production technique. What it means is you're not allowed to use synthetic inputs in your farming. So you can't use a synthetic fertilizer, so something made through the Haber-Bosch process of extracting nitrogen from the air or from fuel. You're not allowed to use synthetic pesticides. You're not
Mhm.
allowed to use anything that's not natural.
Ah,
It's a really bad place to draw a line because natural poisons are pretty bad. Whether you're talking about snake venom, whether you're talking about strychnine, you're talking about arsenic, you're talking about
yeah,
lead, you're talking cadmium, there are rotenone, there are plenty of naturally occurring poisons, ricin, that are extremely dangerous. So just because it's natural doesn't mean you want to put it in your body. Okay.
very true.
So I find that to be a really unfortunate delineation because there are many organic compounds, many organic pesticides, which we use on my wife's farm, that are perfectly effective and they work in many scenarios, but they work as a complement to the synthetic ones for us. And the synthetic ones work very well too. There's some cases where all you have are synthetic insecticides. In the case of borers, peach borers, or other tree boring insects, you have to use a synthetic pesticide. So
Ah,
organic limits what you can use as a farmer. And what that means is in terms of the organic farmers, and I'm not disparaging them, I think they work harder than I do. Their job is a lot harder because they have to use more space and more inputs that are natural to get the same yield, if they can get it.
Mm.
And my hat's off to organic farmers, no problem. But the problem is that they equate organic with a halo, saying it's safer, it's more natural. It's not more natural and it's not safer. It is a different way of using compounds to control the threats to plants. And I might use, or I should say, a large grower of watermelons or melons or corn or whatever may use a quarter ounce of a fungicide per acre or per
Yeah.
hectare, a quarter ounce. And organic farmers will use 10 pounds or 5 kilograms of a organic acceptable pesticide.
Ah,
So it's using a lot less compound because there's much more targeted because they're synthetic and they
mm.
target a specific aspect of insect or fungal metabolism. So for me to think about organic, I love that people do it, but it's like going into a fight with one hand tied behind your back. And
Ah.
I give credit to the people who do it, but I don't want to do it. And it's not any safer.
Okay, but is it like where did organic farming start? What are the origins of it?
Yeah, I wish I had a good answer on that. There's a lot of discussion that the idea of biodynamic farming came from a number of personalities, and his name escapes me at this point. I know him very well. Came from a group of practices that said we need to be working more in concert with nature to be able to grow crops more effectively. And this goes back to burying a cow horn that's half full of manure during a full moon, pointing the right direction would somehow give your garden more ability to grow. It was a lot of magical thinking.
Ah,
And that's what gave rise to this idea of organic farming. I'm, to me, I love organic farmers. They work really hard and they do a great job. I sell at farmers markets and the people around me are organic farmers, but they're spending more time to create less product at a higher price. And I don't know that is going to be a long-term sustainability possibility for feeding a hungry planet.
yeah, that is, you're right, absolutely. It because after all, from my understanding, my very limited understanding of farming, the synthetic pesticides, the synthetic fertilizers, these were developed to solve certain problems. People aren't just developing them willy-nilly, as the British would say. But it's developed to solve certain problems. And in some cases, I've heard that they're even less harmful to the environment because a lot of people are talking about the harms that synthetic fertilizers and pesticides have to the environment, have to butterflies, have to bees. Which ones are safer? Which ones are more harmful? What do you think?
Yeah, that's a tough call to make because it depends on the exact application. But I can tell you, let's just look at fungicides, for instance,
Hmm.
that by targeting, I guess, ergosterol synthase. So this is as you and I make cholesterol to make our
Right.
membranes and our hormones and all that stuff, fungi make ergosterol. And so we're able to target that specific metabolism of fungi that doesn't affect us and doesn't affect plants. It only affects the fungi. So it's the targeted nature that makes it so effective. And we can go on all day about this. The idea of neonicotinoid insecticides target a specific aspect of insect neurotransmission that doesn't affect
Ah,
us. And so the targeted nature is what makes it less risk, or it takes away a lot of the risk that's there compared to old school organophosphates.
mhm.
Planes would fly over the field and spray everything. In India, organophosphates, organochlorides, these were all used for years.
Ah,
And we have the opportunity to use a much more targeted approach now than we
mhm.
did before. And so that's what's the good part of it. Organic goes the other way. Rather than using a specific and targeted approach, uses a universal poison. So something like copper sulfate will kill fungi, will kill bacteria, but it does it in a non-specific way. Copper is a heavy metal. It's
Yeah.
relatively harmless for us. It does accumulate in the soil. In some packing houses, the if the runoff, which is blue because of all the copper, has to be treated as a
Oh,
hazardous waste here in the States. And so it really is a question of what do you really want to use? Is it something very specific and targeted at a quarter of a few grams per acre? Or is it something that you want to put in a kilograms per acre? And for me, that's a really easy calculus.
I see what you mean. So I actually wanted to get into the video a little bit later, but I have a feeling that this is exactly the right time to do this. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
All right.
And I have you heard, first of all, of this lady called Vandana Shiva?
Absolutely.
Ah, for some
She
reason I
doesn't
feel
like
that
me. Yeah, she's blocked
yeah.
me on all social media. And yeah, she's spoken in my state to
Oh,
talk about how bad pesticides are a few miles away or a few kilometers away from where the trees are dying because of a pest and where citrus production is going out of phase because of a pest. And
ah,
I always hoped that she would change because she has been disparaging farmers and farming and modern technology for a long time. And while I agree with a lot of things she says about the environment and about consumption and about immediate gratification and need for new stuff or whatever, I love that stuff about her. She's absolutely wrong about agriculture.
yeah. This is something that I actually, let me see when I saved this video. I think it, I might, oh, Photos has no recollection of when I saved this video, but it's been a few years that I've had this video. So let me share the screen. And here we go. Let's play this.
Yeah, I don't have any audio.
Oh, that's interesting. That is unusual.
Ah,
I
good old
need to figure that
Vandana.
out. Anyway, so we can see the what she's saying. So she's
Yeah,
talking
yeah, that's
about
good. Keep
the
on
sh
going.
the
Now
new
embodied
poisons
and
from same logic is destroying the useful, the basis of health. There's a lot of dramatic music at this point of time. The poison cartel.
yeah, yeah. The same groups that invented the chemistry created the cure. I called that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, yeah. Cancer and kidney failure.
Yeah, apparently. Because they also sell cancer drugs.
The poison cartel.
So what do you think of basically what she's saying about these companies, which she has mentioned like Agent Orange, she will mention Agent Orange and other deadly chemicals used during World War II, and these companies that are actually driving bees and butterflies to extinction. Are bees and butterflies actually going into extinction at any point?
All right, well,
Or
we can. I think the way to think about this is Dr. Shiva, to her credit, is concerned about the exact same things I'm concerned about.
ah,
And I really do want a better planet. I really do want healthy people. I'm very interested in all of the aspects that she is. The problem is that she goes about it in a completely incorrect way. And
ah,
she has fallen victim to the propaganda and the misinformation rather than the actual scientific consensus. And
ah.
that's what's so dangerous because she's an extremely compelling speaker.
Yes, she is
And
incredibly, incredibly good.
she comes across as this motherly advisor. She gets paid a fortune to go give a talk, and first class like me doesn't stand a chance. But being kind, I just say that she does a very nice job. The problem is that she falls into the same trap. She goes ahead and repeats the issue of the same companies are selling the poisons, which we know that at the doses used, the insecticide or insect and weed controls are not poison.
Hmm.
They are selling you a cure for cancer and almost implying like they're trying to give you a disease so that they can cure it. And I don't know that there's a company out there that where business practice is A good business practice is to kill your customer.
Yeah.
And so I really don't like that argument at all. And just all of her rhetoric about corporation bad. I'm not a big corporation guy at all, but corporations have the ability to scale up technology and have the R&D background to be able to create the next generation of technology. So she's complaining about technology on the internet using a chip and a computer and an internet and satellites that are all the same kinds of technology. So this technology good, this technology bad. And I get it. It's about food. It's about the stuff we sit around the table together. It's a social, it's got all kinds of cultural overlays. I get that. But you can't lie about the science when you use the science to disseminate your anti-science message.
Yeah.
Perfectly, I think you get my point.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who use science when it's convenient for them and then say that science is crap when it's
That's
convenient for
right.
them again. And this is a practice that has gone across a lot of alternative medicine and a lot of other pseudoscientific practices, which is where
Yes.
they always say that, oh yes, oh science has proven that blah 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 blah, and next minute saying, oh science doesn't know everything because ancient wisdom is far more powerful than current modern day science, which is too narrow and doesn't see everything the way it should be seen. I totally get that. I see what she's been doing. Okay, let's watch a little bit more.
All people for
Okay.
freedom from sickness and disease and freedom from slavery of a new kind, a slavery of the poison cartel.
Manufactured explosives during the two world wars by
Yeah.
formerly called IG Farben.
Cyclone B gas. Yeah.
Yeah.
The poison cartel is the tiny group of companies that were mobilized during the war to, on the one hand, domestically in Germany, kill people in concentration camps by creating gases that were designed to kill, like the Xylon B.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
During the war, there was a company called Monsanto and Bayer. Bayer has just bought up Monsanto, and again, we have a cartel of three. Bayer has merged with Monsanto, that's Syngenta has merged with ChemChina, and Dow has merged with DuPont.
And, yeah, okay, 60%. So, what do you think about this correlation between creating poisons on one hand and now creating beneficial, so to speak, chemicals on the other hand in the modern day?
Yeah, but you see how this rhetorically fits where she needs to be for her agenda. Everything she said there is correct. Bayer or IG Farben, they produced Zyklon B, which was used in concentration camps. Okay, back 80 years ago.
Yeah.
And Monsanto was one of 16 companies that produced Agent Orange because of the government mandate that told 16 companies, you must do this for the war effort. And Agent Orange was a defoliant. It worked again. It worked to. It was a kind of herbicide we call an auxin, and was contaminated with a dangerous dioxin. They were one of 16 companies that produced it, and they did what the government produced the compound. She's not wrong. They did produce it, but that was 50 years ago. Okay, so companies that, if you judge me on the things I did when I was 2 or 3 years old, I probably wouldn't have a very favorable look on who I am now. Years ago, these were all chemical companies and it was a different world. And we didn't pay attention to ecological impact. And we had, I would say, looser ethics with how we treated people until we look at
Absolutely.
America today. And so things were all different back then. And like a good example is the Monsanto company. Back then, They did a lot of bad stuff. Their name is all over sites around the country where they polluted or had chemical issues. But the Monsanto company sold in 1998 and became a biological company, a seed company. And people felt very suspicious. Here's this company that did all this bad stuff that now is selling us seeds. I understand that. The optics on that are horrible. But what
Yeah.
Vandana Shiva is doing is she's saying that because these companies did something 50 or 80 years ago means that now you can't trust them. And I think that is a real stretch because these are companies which have the technology to do some very good things and are commercializing those technologies. And to paint them with back 80 years ago, they did this is not an effective way to evaluate the current slate of products.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, like, I think companies like this, if they have transformed over the years, that is a good sign, to be honest. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that everything that they do is nefarious. There has to be an opportunity to grow and change. Companies don't necessarily follow a dogmatic ideology, which will not change over the decades. They will obviously change according to the times, according to the requirements, and according to the science that is being developed to understand humans better, nature better, plants better. And apparently, these companies have been doing that. And I remember Bayer from, of course, one can never trust one's own memory because especially mine. But whatever it is, they had beneficial things that they were doing even when I was a kid, which was in the 80s.
Sure.
And I do remember that that actually went to do good things as well. So anyway,
Well, yeah, but
sorry.
I think just to your point, I think you mentioned I think you left out one thing,
Hmm?
and that is all these companies are out there to make a buck, and they're all
Yes, very
making
true.
money. They're there for shareholders, and I don't agree with that necessarily. I am a shareholder in Bayer, and I was started that after the glyphosate trials and all the fallout where their stock price tanked because I knew as a scientist that this can't stay this way. But I'm
Yeah,
just doing that as a function of disclosure. They're out to make money, and to make money, you have to produce a product that is able to be sold, that people benefit from, and has demand. And Bayer sells, and Bayer Monsanto, they sell seeds that farmers want to buy because they're
yeah.
superior. And if they're not, they won't buy them.
Mm,
And so that's the one really important part of this that we always leave out. They're a for-profit company that is there to produce something for farmers, not for you and me.
yeah.
And I buy Bayer seed, but I buy a tiny little bit of it. Most farmers are growing hundreds to thousands of acres. Yeah, but that's another really important point. These are for-profit companies. In killing your customer or by having problems with your products,
It's
it doesn't.
counterproductive.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
This quoting, who is it? Jim Carrey, actually. Is counterproductive. All right, let's go on with the video. This is about a minute and a half left.
Ah, yes.
Precisely at the time we think we are getting richer because 1% became super billionaires and trillionaires, at that time the young people are having to rise and say, we have to take care of our future. Food is created for all. We are connected to food, and yet 1 billion people are starving. Food is supposed to be for nourishment and health, and yet the 75% of the disease epidemic, of chronic diseases, of cancers, of neurological problems, of autism,
Oh,
of
she got autism.
obesity, of diabetes, of endocrine disruption are all related to the same poisons, same chemicals, same pesticides that are pushing the bees to extinction and contributing to climate change. But it's in our hands to heal the earth. It's in our hands to heal our bodies. It's in our hands to heal our broken democracy by taking power away from the poison cartel. And that's why we've launched a campaign for poison-free food and farming. That's in our hands to do by creating communities, by not allowing poverty to be defined as lack of money, but poverty to be defined as lack of potential Each of us joining hands with others can create communities of solidarity, food communities, so that everyone has good food. Every butterfly has good food and isn't killed. Every child has good food.
Yes, indeed. That's the
Hey,
part of it that I totally agree with.
yeah. You know,
But at the
I
same time, yeah, so yes, everybody does deserve to have good access to food, even countries that are stricken with poverty, even countries with famines. And it's very important that everybody has access to good food. But at the same time, she has completely fallaciously assigned all these chemicals to be responsible for a whole, like a huge wide range of diseases. Now, I say fallaciously because I feel that's probably wrong because she did mention autism, and I know that autism is a genetic condition and it is definitely not caused by chemicals. As far as we know to date, I could be wrong at some point of time. But what do you think of the other conditions that she mentioned and other things?
I think she makes a big mistake there because what she basically says is, I align with Kevin Folta on everything. That we want people to be fed. We want people to have productive futures. We want people to be healthy. But she's basically saying, her statement there is like saying, I want to solve the homeless problem and make sure everybody has a place to live, but I don't want them to have lumber. No trees, no two by fours, no lumber to build the house. She's saying that the technology is the problem, when really what the problem is much bigger. She starts out talking about billionaires and trillionaires. Our problem isn't a technology poisoning people problem. Our problem is a much more of a stratification because of financial inequity that happens across groups. In the US, it's really bad right now. We have young people who don't have any money, who don't have houses, who don't own a home, who are curious about their futures, who can't get paid enough to survive, and a limited class of older folks who are sitting on lots of money, pensions, Social Security. It's more of a question of inequity. But
Yeah,
that's a long-term problem that happens at the policy level. You can't blame it on agricultural chemistry because agricultural chemistry is feeding us during this. And I agree with her 100% in terms of, we don't want chronic disease. We don't want dead butterflies, of course. But none of the technologies I discuss do any of that. If anything, they allow more access to more food to more people.
indeed. So we have discussed what are the different aspects of organic farming versus commercial farming. And of course, commercial farming is, it does make use of certain chemicals that are relatively more effective in doing a good job in helping the farmer get more yield. Now, there are big downsides to organic farming as well. I'm sure you've heard of what happened in Sri Lanka. A lot of that was pushed by Vandana Shiva, actually. So,
Yeah.
could you just take us through what exactly happened and what went wrong?
Yeah, I could talk about that. And I like to talk about this because it's not as, so if you listen to people who are really the attack dogs of the genetic engineering world, they'll say it's all because they ban, or people who are anti-organic, they'll say it's all because they are banned organic, and or they banned conventional farming. They went all organic, and that was the problem. And really, what the problem was a multifactorial one that started long before the bans on fertilizers. So, back in Sri Lanka, they had what were called the Easter Sunday bombings. And this was in 2019, and it was coordinated bombings that killed a lot of people, including a lot of foreign nationals. And Colombo, Sri Lanka, was a very important tourist destination.
Yeah.
And this really turned off the tourism. It turned off this big part of Sri Lanka's economy. And later on, so this was kind of setting the stage. Then later on, after you're already seeing a downturn in the economy of Sri Lanka, Dana Shiva and others, they, and maybe I should mention this also. There also was a series of scientific reports that were put out about the dangers of glyphosate and other farming inputs that came from tea and rice farming, where they said, okay, this is where glyphosate has this effect on chronic kidney disease of undetermined origin and
Mm.
CDKU. And there was a scientist back at the time who received all kinds of accolades for making the hypothesis that glyphosate might be at the core of this. And in his first paper, he just mentioned it and never said there were data suggesting it, but said it was something to do with glyphosate. And that grabbed everybody's attention as the causal agent in the Sri
Oh.
Lankan problem, where there never was any data to substantiate that. So, anyway, so this background of glyphosate is the problem, kind of economic downturn. Vandana Shiva and others, a number of folks, along with the president of the country, they said, you know what, starting on such and such a date, and this was like in 2001, we're going to go organic starting today. And that means
2001 or 2021?
2021, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
2021. We're going to go organics overnight. And this was President Rajakowska or something along that line. He said, we are going to ban this overnight. And the problem is that when you take farmers who are already conventionally farming, which are using glyphosate probably a little bit to control weeds, but more importantly, synthetic fertilizers,
Mhm.
Haber-Bosch fertilizers. Now all of a sudden their yields just drop through the floor.
Yeah.
And there was something like just Sri Lanka went from a net exporter of tea and rice to become an importer. And the losses were in the millions, like 300, $400 million in loss. There was rice was a really important downturn. It was something like they had to import something like 400, like $500 million of rice had to come in rather than
Mhm.
go out. Tea exports fell massively. Vegetable prices were through the roof. There were shortages that occurred. There was scarcity on store shelves. So there was a lot of problem at that point. The inflation was huge. Farmers were mad. There were farmer protests everywhere. Eventually, there was a government collapse because of all this. You had protesters in the swimming pool of the Sri Lankan president. And it was all because of a couple things. One, you're using organic farming, which takes time to learn,
Mhm.
which takes time to transition, and you dropped it on farmers overnight with a ban. So you took a less effective way of controlling pests and pathogens, less effective fertilizers, and you told them tomorrow you're going to change. And it just didn't work. And so that was the big fallout. It was very much promoted by Vandana Shiva and others. There are YouTube videos of her saying, and then when we make the organic transition, everything will be perfect. It was really unfortunate, and a lot of people suffered for it.
Yeah, and it was actually it was all over the world in all the newspapers, of course, and it was a really awful time for that country, I'm sure. But on the other hand, you have a country like Bhutan who are doing and somehow have succeeded in being an all organic agricultural economy. How does that work?
It's possible to do it, right? If you have labor and if you have plenty of hands who are willing to do the tilling and do the weed control, that's
Mhm.
the biggest problem is if you don't have chemical weed control or tilling, you got to go back to old school methods, tilling and then hand weeding and short hose and all the things that we do on organic farms here in the States. It is very challenging to do organic farming. But if you have labor, if you have time to transition into it, it can be done.
Okay, that is interesting. And we had talked about genetically modified organisms or plants, and that is something that a lot of people are very scared of. Now, I don't want to move completely away from organic just yet, but I do want to touch on GMOs. Now, of course, a lot of us in the skeptical community at least know about golden rice and how that has the potential to alleviate starvation and vitamin A deficiencies in large swaths of populations, especially in poverty-stricken countries that have very hard soil to work on. But yeah, just let's just understand as an overview of GMOs and the potential that they have to help us.
Well, this is really the irony is that when you look at genetically engineered crops, there is no better place for a genetically engineered crop than in organic production. So, organic
Ah.
production is the synthetic versus natural inputs. The
Mm.
seeds themselves, in at least in the United States, our organic program forbids the use of genetically engineered crops. Now, if you could make a crop that could be resistant to a mild herbicide
Mm.
or produce its own insecticide, that's even the better example. On organic crops, you can use something called dipel, which is
Mm.
a BT based spore formulation. So you can put the spores of bacteria on plants, particularly crucifers like broccoli or cabbages, all that stuff. And it kills the little worms that grow on them. So little worms, the little larvae that eat those things, are killed by BT with BT
Mm.
toxin. Now, if I take the same gene that makes the toxic protein and I put it into the plant and let the plant protect itself, they say, nope, can't do that. So the exact same poison, only instead of me having to apply it and
Mm.
spend the money, the plant makes its own protection. That crop would be the most brilliant thing for organic production because you're
Ah.
using the same toxin, only the plant makes it rather than the factory makes it. And it's such a great example of why organic farms should be the first people embracing genetic engineering.
Yeah, that does make sense because a lot of the thing is that what once you modify the plant to create its own toxin against its own pests, how does that affect the quality of the food, the produce? Does
It
that
doesn't
become
affect
harmful?
it at all. Doesn't affect it at all. It's extra nutrition. It's another protein that's present inside the corn, and there's 50,000 proteins swimming around in there, and this is
Okay.
just another one.
And
Only
it's not
this one,
harmful to humans.
it's not harmful to humans at all. It's not harmful outside of a very narrow range of insects. So I can
Ah.
have the compound that we call BT
Hmm.
is also known as something delta endotoxin or the crystal protein, the cry proteins. These proteins have a very narrow range of effective use. There are
Hmm.
ones that you use against lepidopterans, which
Hmm.
are moths and butterflies that lay their eggs on the corn husks and eat the end of the corn, that kill cotton. That those are the two major places for BT. We can
Ah.
install that gene and the plant protects itself rather than having to apply the protein. And it doesn't affect the plant at all. It does only affects the target organism, which is just
Ah.
amazing to me. Why don't we love this?
Yeah, I know. Because plants produce their own toxins already, and a lot of those
Yep.
are actually the spices and the flavors that we love. Like, I had
Yep.
this amazing conversation with a guy called Krish Ashok. Have you heard of him by
Okay.
any chance?
No, I don't know, Chris. No.
So he his passion is studying food, science, and history. And he has a channel on YouTube called Krish Ashok, which I'll share with you and I'll put it in the description.
Thank you.
And he also has an Instagram handle called underscore Masala Lab.
Okay.
So he's written a book, a cookbook called Masala Lab.
Oh,
And
cool.
he was telling me that the flavors that we have from onions and garlic are basically toxins that the plant is producing to get rid of its natural pests, the natural
Yeah.
pests that are coming towards the plant. When you have cloves, nutmeg, these flavors that we love are actually pesticides, and basically these are poisons that the plant is creating to get rid of its natural predators, so to speak, predators. And they're the flavors we love. So if we can actually generate something that may actually add a little bit of extra flavor, and even if it doesn't add flavor, at least protects itself from its own natural predators, so to speak, I think it's a fantastic thing. But you should definitely check out a lot of Krish's stuff. I'll put the
Yeah.
interview I had with him and I'll send that to you as well because he is absolutely fantastic. Like he's got such a tremendous amount of passion for what he studies. and for what and the content that he creates. And by far, he is one of the gold mines of information when it comes to Indian, especially Indian food and Indian
Oh,
spices.
good.
And he talks a lot about farming techniques and especially the influence of our history and culture on the food that we eat and
Oh,
the
that's
way it is
great.
cooked. So I'm
I
sure you'll love
love
it.
that. No,
And you
I
should have him on
absolutely
your
will.
podcast as well.
I should. I absolutely love Indian food, and I'm very blessed to have had many people come through my lab from India who share
Ah,
their recipes. And I have a recipe book of people I have a big container of Indian spices, and we cook Indian food all the time, and my kids love it. And
that's amazing.
but the to expand on your point, the caffeine in your coffee, the
Ah,
nicotine in cigarettes. These are compounds made by
check
plants.
it out.
Not,
Yeah,
yeah, there you go. That's a pesticide. That isn't there to get a to give us a buzz. It's there to get rid of the buzz. It's there to
exactly.
kill. It's there to
Yeah.
kill insects. And so these are compounds plants make to deter insects and fungi. Yeah, so you're 100% right. And the more interesting the flavors and aromas, the probably better they are at killing something that would potentially harm the plant.
Absolutely. And that brings me to just the final thing that I really wanted to touch on. And of course, I'm like, I have a million questions in my head right now, but I'm like, have to prune them down to consumable bite-sized pieces, which brings me to the actual produce that we have in our kitchens. And I was wondering that with a lot of people are talking about not only organic farming, especially in India, that we want to get more food from organic sources. And we have shopping baskets, I mean, shopping apps and stuff like that, which can deliver food to my house within 10 minutes,
Yeah.
where I can get all my fruits and vegetables that I need for cooking for the day, and they'll be delivered to my house in 10 minutes. And they've got organic produce, and they've got regular produce, and they've got hybrid produce. And so people are definitely pushing for it. People are buying it. It is more expensive. So I don't expect everybody to go for it. But that psychology is all consuming. But the other thing which a lot of people are now starting to worry about because of unreliable sources on the internet is that your food is covered with pesticides and herbicides and all of these things, and you have to soak them in something, or you need to get them from a certain place or something of that sort. What is it that we can do? First of all, is that true? And secondly, what is it that we can do to protect ourselves from consuming these pesticides?
Okay, so I'll put on my farmer hat here. As somebody who grows fruit in Florida, which is a very challenging environment, we grow fruits and vegetables here in the state of Florida where it's always warm and
Mhm.
always moist, wet. It is very challenging to grow anything without some degree of crop protection. And so
Ah,
when I say crop protection, I'm talking about insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, antimicrobials. But the thing to remember is I'm a dad. I got two little kids. We eat
mm,
this food. I would never do something that would possibly be harmful to them. Not in a million years. My job is to protect them. And so when I go out and spray, I know what I'm spraying. I know the dose I'm spraying it at. I know if I can wash it off. I know what's present. I know what the risks are to humans. And I have absolutely zero reservations about feeding that to my kids because I'm feeding them high quality fruits and vegetables from my space that I raised. And I take a lot of pride in that. And so what it boils down to is the dose makes the poison.
yeah.
If you what we are spraying as we spray it is not harmful to humans, that you could inhale it, you could drink it, whatever, it would not harm you. It's very harmful to the target because these things are so selective. We could target a fungus, we could target bacteria, we could target insects, weeds.
Mm,
It's not meant to target animals or mammals especially. And but still we take tremendous precaution. We have a post-harvest interval that if I spray certain things now, we can't consume them for at least 14 days. And that's
ah,
because these do have certain amount of risk, but it's gone upon spraying it, but still we give it time to make sure it's all gone. And it's really sad that we vilify chemistry so much because so many of the reports will say, and here's how they fake you out. They say, we detected this poison on your carrots. And what they really mean to say is that a chemical that at massive amounts gives, if you feed it to rats at a tenth their body weight for 2 weeks, yeah, it causes problems. But at the vanishingly small parts per billion, seconds in 32 years, that this is present, that it's detected, it can't harm you. It's detected. And this is where the disconnect comes from, is that if I tell a mom in the grocery store it's only there at 12 parts per billion, she'll say, well, that's 12 parts per billion too many.
Too much. Yeah.
And it's because we don't understand what a part per billion is, that we don't understand that this has no effect on us at those levels, and that we're really good as chemists at detecting something that's almost not there.
Yeah.
So our problem is we're very good at detecting very little and not good at explaining how little something
Yeah.
really is. And so your food is safe. You need more fruits and vegetables. Don't let people scare you away from them.
Absolutely. The dose makes the poison. That is the most essential thing that people need to understand. The dose makes the poison. You can drink too much water and it'll kill you. You can try and drink a glass of glyphosate, which is not recommended, as one chap tried to challenge at one point of time. It might not be toxic to humans, but don't drink a glass of it for
Yeah.
Christ's sake. But it is a very nuanced conversation, I think, and it's something that people need to understand that they are safe. And if you feel like you're still having a risk, just wash your vegetables. That's not hard to do. Just do it under running water. In India, of course, our water is very polluted, so you might not want to do it under tap water, but you can definitely do it under other forms, other cleaner forms of water. But I really wanted to touch on so much more, actually, especially GMOs, and really dig into those things. But I think it's getting a little late for you, and we're running a little low on time. But thank you so
Yeah,
much
but
for
we can
joining
always do
us.
it again. I appreciate the conversation and I'm available anytime. I would love to talk to you more about any of these things. I just think it's so important that all of us are creating as much media as we can to counter the disinformation that's out there. And I love your efforts and appreciate what you're doing. And anytime you want to talk about it, if you got a guest on who wants to cancel, call me up
Yeah.
and let's do it again.
All right, brilliant. Oh, there is one more thing which I wanted to talk about.
Ah,
There's one question which I got on my community group was I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse or not, but cold pressed seed oils versus hot pressed seed oils. Is there any difference in health benefits or anything of that sort? Is that
yeah.
part of your,
Well,
do you know
I,
much?
but at the end of the day, when you look at the composition of the oil that comes out, when you're
Mhm.
looking at cold versus hot pressed, you're looking at the process, not the product.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's nothing that's coming along from either one. Cold pressed, you're essentially squeezing out the oils as they occur, which I don't think you can do with too many seeds. I don't know. I know in India they use a lot of mustard seed
Yeah.
oil. I don't know the dynamics of that, but most of the seed oils from brassicas have to be extracted with a number of compounds first. You do an organic extraction, you make a paste that ends up being going through a couple of iterations before the oil is separated. And then the
Mhm.
oil is just oil. Either way, the oil is oil.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that in terms of the health quality, that there would be a difference between cold and hot pressed. The flavor quality, you may be able to tell the difference,
Okay.
but it doesn't increase the risk.
All right. And what about vegetable oils versus seed oils?
Yeah, it doesn't. Vegetable oils, for the most part, are seed oils. I think when you're talking about vegetable oils, you're talking
Mhm.
about corn, sunflower, safflower. Those are all coming from seed.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
yeah, so you're not changing too much. The thing about seed oils is the seed. What is the job of a seed? It is to give a young embryo that's planning to develop enough materials to survive
And
and
energy.
energy. And so you bring proteins, you bring carbohydrates, and you bring oil. And
Yeah.
oil, fats, oil, lipids, these are excellent long-term storage because you can break these down through beta oxidation in the absence of oxygen to be
Ah,
able to create ATP for metabolism. And you see this in seeds. If you look in seeds, you look at the oxygen debt across the seed, you see
mm,
where it starts to change its metabolism to oil metabolism. And
ah,
so that's why seeds have so much oil. That's
ah.
they're there for the embryo. They're not there for you and me. We've just learned how to extract it to be
Yeah,
able to use it for use for cooking and everything else.
that's right.
Poly and monounsaturated fats from seeds are
Mm.
much more safe than the saturated fats from animals.
Yeah, because in India, there's this huge drive to consume more ghee. Yeah, I'm sure you love ghee. Everybody
Yeah.
loves ghee.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's become an obsession that people think that you can put ghee in everything and you'll actually lose weight. And I'm like, guys, it's
Uh,
just a fat. It's a saturated fat and it should remain within 30% of your total fat caloric intake.
yep.
And there's nothing special about it. Whether you take it as coconut oil or ghee or lard or tallow or whatever it may be, it is a saturated fat. I don't think there's any difference to that, is there?
Not so much. There all are some slight differences, but in general, they're very similar. We raise grazing pigs, and you can tell the difference between that and a commercial hog very easily. But in general, where these things are all saturated fats, and you are safer and better off with plant-based oils in general.
You heard it from the man himself, guys.
There you go.
Kevin Folta, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us. This has
Well,
been an
thank you very
absolutely
much.
fantastic conversation.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and best wishes in everything you do going forward. I really appreciate that you're out there doing it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And guys, if you like this conversation and if you enjoyed it, please give it a like, subscribe for more of this kind of stuff. And of course, if you want to support us, you can join the channel on YouTube or you can visit us at Rationable on Patreon and help us out there. So thank you so much for joining us for Rationable Conversations. Until next time, stay rational.